on our agenda, there it is. Not really on our agenda tonight, but let's start by introducing, we have new members. So this being the start of the new fiscal year. So we have some additions to the board this evening, all to my left. So first we have Scott Russ, Sue Stool, and then our student representative is Kate Myers. And I want to welcome all of you to the board and appreciate you guys being here and serving with us. And feel free tonight as we go through the agenda, we'll have opportunities for everybody to provide input as necessary. And if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to ask those as well.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Marty, appreciate it.
All right, so the first item we have to do tonight is approval of the minutes from the June meeting. Any discussion relative to those minutes? We have a motion.
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
All right. Does that still carry? There's 3 of us that say yes and 2 abstentions.
I have to check that. Maybe Derek will come in and we can revote that, just in case.
Yeah, I think we need 4 to say yes.
Can we call him on the telephone?
No, we can't do
If
that.
not, we can just approve them next time.
Yeah.
Just to be sure.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
All right. All right. All right. So then we'll move down to the staff report for the wall signs that were approved. And let's just for new members, we don't vote on the wall signs. Those are handled by town staff over the course of the previous month from the last meeting until now. But they do provide a rundown of those approved signs for us each month when this meeting. And then if they have a sign that might require some additional input from this board, they'll bring it before us for input. So with that, if you'll do the rundown.
Sure. This is a very rare month where we didn't have any wall signs approved since the last meeting. There are a number in the works, but they're all in progress, and staff is still waiting to get revised materials in and that sort of thing. So there haven't been any permits issued since the last meeting.
Okay. And then if in your package, you'll probably be able to see for the new members that there were wall signs on the last, on the minutes. There were a number of them last month.
Yeah.
So you can kind of get an idea of what that'll look like when we have them.
And again, for the new members, since you've only seen one packet, and it was this one, typically what we do is we also put photos of each of the new signs in your packet so you can see what was approved. So.
All right, so we'll move down to the ground mounted sign applications. These are applications that we do vote on. And so the first one will be Kroger, located at 189 Brooklawn Street.
Okay, this is a simple tenant panel. It's for the tenant panel sign that's located along the Kingston Pike frontage. There near the gas pumps, there at the Kroger Shopping Center. For the members that were here at the last meeting, the board reviewed a similar tenant panel on the sign that's located at the corner of Brooklawn and South Campbell Station Road. There's one at each end of this development. So they didn't get this one in time to be on the last agenda. So this was submitted. And what they're doing is they're revising a sign that they actually put on the structure that was not compliant with our standards. They put up that sign with the blue background and the white lettering, and our regulations require the signs now to have a similar background color. So they have to revise this tenant panel to the white background with the blue lettering. So it's clearly legible. It's sort of a minor issue and is ready for approval.
And this sign that's on the other ground mounted sign on the other, it matches this one too, right?
It will. I mean, They haven't installed the one that was approved at the last meeting yet. I think they're just waiting for this one to get approved, and then they'll probably fabricate and install them both at the same time.
Makes sense. Any other questions or comments? All right, we have a motion.
Motion To approve.
You have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so the next ground-mounted sign is the Taco Bell located at 11217 Kingston Pike. This is the primary ground-mounted sign.
And again, the board reviewed this agenda item and the next agenda item at the last meeting, and both were denied at the last meeting. The applicants had submitted, basically non-compliant designs and plans. So they've gone back, made a lot of progress in getting into closer to compliance with our requirements. There are going to be a couple of subject tos for, the potential motion to approve, but this is the ground-mounted sign, which is there in the, obviously along the street frontage, right in this area on the site plan. That's the sign now. Our sign requirements, they require the address numbers to be located at the top of the sign. The plan that was done at the last meeting had the numbers down at the bottom. They weren't particularly visible, so they had to revise that. The local sign company, Allen Sign, is sort of got the contract to install and probably fabricate, but all the design work's being done by a group outside of the area. It's just like a branding company that Taco Bell uses. So it's been difficult to communicate because they're just used to putting out their typical product. So Allen Sign's been essentially having to be a middleman to explain to them what we need on the plans, because they're the ones that are actually putting the plan sets together. So, there have been some issues. We still have one or two issues to resolve, but the area of the sign, because we don't count the area that is occupied by the numbers in the overall area and height of the sign. So although it's a fairly large sign face, that top portion is not going to be counted against them in terms of height or area. So the sign will meet our height requirements and our area requirements, not counting that portion of the sign. The numbers are at the top. We can recommend approval subject to, need them to add the dimension, and an earlier plan set had it, and now it's not on there, but the height of the numerals for the address number, our requirements are a minimum of 8 inches. So we need them to just put the dimension on there so we have a record of it for the permit. And again, sometimes we have to go back and look at, permits from the past. Things get, damaged in a bad storm. We had one sign about a year and a half ago, it got run over in a car accident, got taken out, and the applicant went back and actually put in a non-conforming sign without a permit, and, we had to go back to the old permit and say, I'm sorry, but, that's not what was there before, so now you're gonna have to fix it. We need the address numbers and probably this lower dimension there too, although I can do the math if I get the address number area on what the total sign face is. Need to verify that the trim work around the cabinet and this area below is all going to be painted black. Allen Sign is aware of that. I'm not sure the larger company is, but right now it's sort of a faded out purple, and that's going to have to be brought into compliance. And then we need a compliant landscaping plan. The landscaping shown in this photo is not there any longer. It's been taken out. The landscaping around the base, and again, we require a minimum 50 square foot area around the sign base to be landscaped, and then it either has to have a minimum of 6 shrubs or a planting of like perennial flowers in that immediate area. So they're going to have to turn in a sign plan. They sent in a letter saying that it was compliant, and I think the person, again, from the out-of-state area that wrote it was basing it on the photo, but this photo is dated, and that landscaping is no longer present. So, subject to those things, staff can recommend approval. If you want to see what the sign will look like with the building, that's sort of the face of the building. That's sort of where they're going with respect to the wall sign. Obviously, you're not reviewing the wall sign, and they're working on coming up with a compliant wall sign, but that's the front of the building and the color scheme. Again, for those of you that weren't here at the last meeting, they came in some time ago and started to repaint the building, and they were going to add quite a bit of purple to the building. Like this whole top area was going to be that bright Taco Bell purple, and I think some of the trim work in here was going to be as well, and we had to stop them because this building's in the town's mixed-use town center planning area, and that color scheme wouldn't match anything that we have adopted, so they had to paint the building this way. So now we're looking to make sure that really our requirement just calls for the base and the structure of the sign to be architecturally compatible with the building. So I think if, the face, they really just need to make sure all the trim and the cabinet and this lower cabinet section is taken out of the purple and put into black or something that matches something on the building. And if you've all been out there, this is quite dark along the top there. So I think if they just do the whole cabinet in black, it'll be fine.
Has the base got any stack stone on it now?
It does have a little stack stone down there. We do not require them to bring the sign up to the full 2-foot base that we require now on a new sign, on new construction. And they're not removing the cabinet and installing a new cabinet. They're really just putting new sign faces in.
New plastic, yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that sometimes causes confusion with some of the out of the area outfits that are doing the brand books and the illustrations for these, is that, many places consider that just to be a reface job, and many places don't even require a permit. They just put the plastic in. But we see it as an opportunity to bring non-conforming signs into closer conformance. So in this case, the cabinet will have to be painted to be more architecturally compatible.
Art, on your first subject too, do you believe that the numerals that are presented are of the required height?
Based on an earlier drawing that I saw, yeah, but I need it all on one. If it's not, they'll have to shrink the Taco Bell down. But you can see that the numbers are much closer to the bell and on this sign than they are on the existing sign. Those numerals are only 6-inch numbers on the existing Taco Bell sign. I went out and measured them.
They were out of compliance to begin with.
Yeah. So, looking at the sign and the additional space being taken up, I believe they probably are, and based on another drawing that was submitted, but it's something that I want them to verify on the plan.
Well,
So that we have a record on the plan.
as we make our vote on this number one subject two here, should we even say require a minimum 8-inch as part of the subject two,
You could,
just to be safe?
we're gonna make sure
Sure.
it gets done, because it's standard, but yeah, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to do that.
Because it's not just labeling it, it's also complying with it,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Okay. And then on the landscape plan document, so we're going to put a subject to in that they have to comply with the current landscape
Yeah,
plan.
yeah,
But we will not have an opportunity really to review that.
yeah, the landscaping for signs, it's really just 6 shrubs within 7 feet, or beds of, like perennial flowering plants, again, within that 7 foot, and then within the 50-foot area. So, staff's not gonna issue the permit, if they dimension the numbers, or if they turned in a landscape plan because you did subject to, if it's not compliant, we're not gonna issue the permit, and then it would have to come back to y'all.
Okay.
So, but yeah, if you wanted to, make note that on both 1 and 2, that they're compliant landscape plans and the compliant address number height, that's fine.
Sure.
Yeah, really, in all honesty, those numbers appear to be the same size, just, I mean, if you're scaling both pictures.
Yeah, but like I said, I did have another drawing that showed them at 8 inches,
Okay.
so.
I don't think this will apply here, but that 8-inch minimum, that's not a fixed number, that's just the minimum number is the 8 inches.
Yep.
Like I
the-
said, it would apply here because they're
Yeah.
probably squeezed anyway, trying to get that 8 inches in there.
Yeah, the way the ordinance reads is they have to be a minimum of 8 inches.
Minimum.
And the area that contains the numbers, whether it be part of the sign like this or it's a placard on top of the sign, can't be more than 18 inches.
18. Okay, thank you. The area that you were talking about that you said they'll need to address with the purple, is that area, it's hard to see on this, the existing one, would it be below where it says drive-through or breakfast on the
Yeah,
proposed? Between that and the stacked stone?
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
that's where it is.
Okay.
And essentially, it's a piece of metal. The bottom
Sure.
6 or 8 inches of this plastic face actually slots down into the bracket.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Right, well, the wording on it seems legible, but we don't have dimensions on the letters either, anywhere.
That doesn't matter, It's really the only, the size of the lettering is, we don't have a standard for that.
No, I thought the standard, though, was that it has to be readable on the type of street that it runs
Yeah.
along.
Yeah.
And with Kingston Pike generally being a larger street, faster speeds, you need larger lettering than you would on
Sure.
a different road.
Yeah.
But that looks large enough to me to be legible.
Yeah, yeah. If you look at that sign in relation, because again, the cabinet's not being replaced, so it's the same size sign that's out there and a new face being put in. So, I'm sure you're all familiar with the Taco Bell sign that's there now. And if anything, the lettering is probably a little clearer and the bell's a little larger. It seems to take up a little more space on the whole sign.
I should have took a picture of the one in Lebanon. I stopped there to get gas and just happened to notice that it was a black
Yeah.
sign right next door to Taco Bell.
Yeah, I mean,
Didn't
this
have
is
a
what-
number up there, though.
Yeah. I mean, this is what they originally proposed in terms of the black background, purple. It's just they didn't have the number integrated into the sign.
Okay.
So that must be what they're going with everywhere.
Is that sign located at the proper setback from Kingston Pike?
Yeah,
Or
it
is
actually exceeds the
It
setback.
does exceed,
Yeah.
because it looks like it's set back quite a bit.
Yeah, this is an older parcel and so the property line is, a good ways out, but
Mhm.
here,
That
like
looks
right
like-
through here, you can see the power poles. And those are typically pretty close to the property line.
Yeah, it's hard to tell with the shadow. if
And
that's a
again, this was
shadow
a
or not.
previously permitted sign, so the sign base, was already in compliant, and they're really just putting the face back in. If it was a new construction, we'd probably have them,
Push it out a little bit.
well, or just document what the setback exactly is, but I think
Okay.
it's,
Okay.
it exceeds the 20-foot. Another good way to look is the parking lots like this have to be at least 20 feet from the property line. So, it's in line with that, but in reality, I think this is further back than 20.
Other questions or comments on the Taco Bell ground mounted sign? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll motion for approval, subject to the clarifying and/or adding dimensions for the address number, area, and numeral font height, and verifying compliance for that. Verifying that the existing sign cabinet frame structure will be painted, updated to be architecturally compatible with the building, and providing a compliant landscape plan documenting that the existing and/or proposed landscaping is compliant.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So we'll move along to the Taco Bell 11217 Kingston Pike menu board ground mounted sign or ground sign, whatever we call that.
Okay. Again, the board looked at this originally last meeting, and it was denied for several reasons. They've made quite a bit of progress on this one. So this is back here in the drive-through aisle, obviously, at the rear of the site. That'll be what the menu board essentially looks like. One clarification needs to be made on this, and the local rep with the local sign company I've been talking to was waiting on them to get something to him. But the maximum height of a menu board above grade is 6 feet, and this would be 6 feet 4 inches. But they say that a portion of the space is going to be, down below grade on the final landscaping. So I just need, one of the, subject twos on this would be, verifying on the plans, having them give us an above grade height that shows the 6 feet. So, but this is the menu board, and our requirements are for the menu board and then all the associated equipment and hardware. So this is the ordering station. You can see the speakers inset in there, and this is a canopy structure. This was revised. They had some purple on it, which we probably could have lived with just a small band of purple, but they took it off anyway. One thing we need this verified is they have the color spec here called out. You can see it right here, like a color and a number. And what I need them to do is verify that color is going to match one of the colors on the building. These graphics are horrible that way. Is the colors on the computer and then on the printer, they don't render properly a lot of times. So what we typically ask them to do is match a color number or get really close to a color name and a number for the hardware, so we can make sure that this is going to match one of the colors on the building, or get so close to it that it matches for all practical purposes. Our regulations don't require a match; they require architectural compatibility. So as long as it's kind of in the ballpark. This is the support for the caution bar for the drive-through. For those of you that were here at the last meeting, this was not a single pole that was going to be brown. It was a large, like, shrouded thing in bright purple. So that was kind of an issue, and that was one of the reasons it was denied. And you can see here again. Here's the front of the building. Here's the side of the building. You can see the difference between it being washed in sun and on the darker side. But I think in terms of those support structures, if they picked up this brown that's in all this, hardware and canopies, or the color, the banding up here at the top, the cladding on top of the building, and just verify that brown is close to one of those, then we'll be in good shape on that. So again, I can recommend approval subject to those two things, is just verification that the colors are going to match, and then that the height above grade, just adding height above grade dimension to this plan.
Go back to that foundation for that sign, or the pole. Foundation may vary depending on on-site conditions. What may vary about the foundation?
I honestly, I don't know. We don't really regulate the construction of it that way. They might not be able to get it as deep. They may have to spread it. There may be something in the way. But they're required to do it in a.
They got a wind load?
Yeah, 135 mile per hour.
Okay, well, won't worry about the foundation.
I mean, really, from this standpoint, we were from the standpoint of the VRB, you're just checking to make sure that the menu board meets our standards, and then all the associated equipment meets our standards, which include the architectural compatibility component. And again, this Taco Bell's in the mixed-use town center planning area, so there's a heightened emphasis on that. So, on this one, it's just, on the menu board, it's really just clarifying a couple of points. It's clarifying the height above grade is no more than 6 feet on the menu board itself, and then clarifying that the color that they are gonna paint or powder coat these two pieces of equipment, this and the support pole here, are gonna be compatible with the building coloring.
Some sort of dark brown.
Yeah. I mean, they could use any color on here if they wanted to, and it would be compatible. They could use this gray for that matter, but it seems like they want to use a brown, so.
All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion for approval, subject to the verifying and noting on the plan that the color specified for the drive-through ordering station and support for the clearance bar matches one of the colors used on the building, and documenting that the planned installed height of the menu board will not exceed 6 feet.
Do we have a second?
Second. Go ahead.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so we'll move down to the landscape plan application section. And Tommy's Water Sports, located at 11470 Outlet Drive, one that I think we've seen before.
Yes, sir. You approved this some time ago, but since the original landscape plan was approved, the overall development has been enlarged. The site plan for the larger facility or the larger site, I think the building is about the same size, but they've expanded the parking areas. Has been through the planning commission. It's been approved by the planning commission. So. But they did have to revise their landscape plan to deal with the additional site improvements, the amount of impervious and improved surface that they're going to put on the site. This area down here is a future development, so it's not being done in this phase, this larger parking and storage area. So we're really just concerned with this top area that is being improved now or will be improved as part of this initial development. So they've submitted a revised landscape plan from the one that you had looked at and approved the last time. This plan is compliant with all our standards. There are a couple of little minor errors on it that need to get fixed. So I would need you to make a motion to approve it, subject to just two corrections. One is there's a stray tree symbol right here that's in the middle of a paved area. And it actually doesn't match any of the other symbols, so I think it's just a stray one that got placed there. And up here, they've got it labeled as one tulip poplar, but they're really calling out 1, 2, 3, 4. So they just need to change that to a 4. And apart from that, it's a compliant landscape plan. If you're all familiar with the site, it's one parcel to the west of Topgolf. It's a heavily treed area now, although it's cleared back in behind there. They have some enormous sinkholes on this property, only exceeded by the sinkholes on the adjoining property to the east. There's a very large sinkhole up here, which is why they're not doing any development up in here. And then there's more down in here. So they've had to design around that. So this whole front area is actually going to be heavily, wooded. So it's going to be quite screened right up through here. The entrance drive is over in here, and it'll come up into here. It's going to be boat sales, boat service.
Yeah, we're looking forward to them being open because of single article cap
Yeah,
tax money.
there's, when we walked up in there, I don't know how they develop a site like that, because there's so much rock on that site. It's just everywhere. Just the cost of doing the great work is, I wouldn't even want to begin to try to estimate it, but it'll be a good location for them with all the other development that's going on out there, and they seem pretty excited. They've been working at this for a long time. They come in, it started out as Moses Water Sports, now it's Tommy's Water Sports. It's going to be a good-looking building. You'll probably see a ground sign application for it in the either next month or the month after, because they've already reached out and asked about that.
Okay.
So,
When we approved this before, does it have the same trees along the road up there now that it had in the previous?
by and large,
iteration?
I mean, there's been a little bit of difference. They had to, because they increased the amount of improved surface, parking lots, buildings, that type of thing, they had to add qualifying shade trees, because under our requirements, they have to put in one shade tree for, I think, every 2,500 square feet of improved surface. So, the old plan was, so they had to find space for shade trees, and a certain number of shade trees have to be in front of the building. So, they are putting trees down in here. I mean, they almost don't need to because of all the vegetation that's going to be in here, but,
Run out of place to put them.
yeah, basically. I
What-
mean,
what
it'll
are
be nice
those
because they'll
trees?
sort of function
Willow
as
oak?
street trees.
Willow Oaks?
From the public standpoint, there's a sidewalk all through there, they'll function as street trees, it'll be nice. Largely the same species are being used, the arrangement's a little different, again, because they're trying to find space for them. They did a couple little offsets where they, in the proceeding, the board had allowed them to substitute a couple of trees for comparable shade trees, but in this case, they're using those same trees as replacement trees, and the standard's not quite as high for those, so they didn't even have to ask for the substitution under. And again, for the new members, our landscape requirements, to be a qualifying shade tree, the tree has to attain, like a mature height of at least 30 feet, and then have a crown spread of at least 30 feet, and it has to be deciduous. Whereas a canopy tree, which is similar, the same dimensions, but it can be evergreen or deciduous. And it can be something that brings its branches down lower, whereas a shade tree is something that, we want them to be able to limb up to at least 8 feet, so that you have sight lines across parking lots and that sort of thing. So, hopefully we'll clarify a little of that. We're working on amendments to the landscape to sort of reorganize them and make it a little easier to work with, and then maybe, change a few of the standards, so some of that may become a little clearer. But that's sort of where we are on this. Again, all the counts are right. They have the right number of shade trees for the size of the facility. They have the right number of replacement trees for what they're doing, for the amount of trees that they're taking off the site. So they're compliant. There's no stormwater detention basins on this plan because they're using the existing sinkholes for drainage.
They're well blessed there.
Yeah, they are. So it's-
What was the tree credits? 100 and...
they had a lot of credits, but they,
119.
they would have probably had to plant more replacement trees, but our standard is capped at 20% of the required trees. So I think they only ended up needing to do like nine replacement trees. And they actually have one or two more trees than they need on the site.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
be the challenges if they try to expand this other section,
Yeah,
because they're gonna run out of land. Unless they buy more from that lady next door.
so, again, staff can recommend approval of the plan, subject to, removing that one strayed tree symbol and just, clarifying that noted number of
Four.
trees there in that corner, yeah.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with subject twos, removing stray tree and identifying the number of tulip poplars from 1 to 4.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we're going to move down to a section we don't have every month, but that's the other business section. And so you're going to provide us a report on some charter changes for our board.
Yeah, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen adjusted the charters for most of the committees and boards in the town. There weren't that many changes made to the VRRB. You did not have term limits. Some boards apparently did, and those were removed from many other charters. The Board of Mayor and Aldermen did opt to leave in the attendance requirement. So it's still 3 meetings per year. If you miss 3, then you have to reapply to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. So essentially, you'll have to, supply a letter explaining why you missed the 3 and asking to be reinstated or reappointed to the board. So we actually had 2 members that had to do that this past year. They had circumstances come up and they missed, so they had to submit a request back to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to be essentially reinstated to the board for the remainder of their terms. So, things happen. People have, business, they have to travel on. They have families and sick kids and
And they work.
work and stuff comes up, so.
Hey.
Yeah, not everyone, right? But, the one change that was made, however, was, the charter used to call, or specify that the VRB's annual meeting was August. So we changed that to where it just requires you to have an annual meeting where you elect officers and things like that. But, we did away with the August language. Now, the bylaws still say August. So what I propose, is that next month we have elections, as we typically do, for the chairman, the vice chairman, and the secretary. So we'll be, consistent with the bylaws. And then sometime between now and the end of the year, we look at the bylaws and, make amendments to those to bring it in line and potentially, if you want, put the annual meeting at this meeting, the July meeting. So that way, when new members are coming on, we can have elections and go through, like a full year instead of a year and a month. I mean, there are pros and cons, I guess. In some ways, it's nice to have the 1 month offset so that the new members have at least a meeting under their belts before having elections. But it's something to consider, and we can go through the bylaws and clean up anything that needs to be cleaned up anyway. If there is anything in there, and then potentially look at that annual meeting. And if the board wants to leave it at August, that's fine too. But it's not mandated to be in August anymore by the charter, so that so the bylaws can reflect really what the VRRB's pleasure is for that.
Purpose was to give some flexibility there.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah. So on the agenda for the next meeting, I'll have election of officers. We can do
Thanks.
that, and then pick up from there, and then take a look at the. I'll go through the bylaws, and if there's anything that I think I need to flag, and then I'll get you all a copy, and we can spend a meeting or two going through those, kind of talking about what what you want to do on that annual meeting and any other changes you might want to make to the bylaws. And then at some point, we'll put it on an agenda for action to formally amend them.
I think that sounds like a good plan.
Okay. That's all I had on that one.
Okay.
So the next item under other business was a discussion of the board's participation in the Adopt a Stream program and the cleanup. For years, the VRBs had an adopted section of the North Fork, Turkey Creek, up close to the interstate, sort of parallels Campbell Station. It's approximately back in behind, the wine and spirits store up there. Once COVID hit and some other things came up, the board hasn't really done a cleanup in several years. So the question is, does the board and its new membership want to continue to participate in that program? And if so, we need to schedule a cleanup this fall sometime. Typically what's been done in the past is like on a Saturday morning, the board's gone out there and sort of cleaned up that section of creek. We can do the stream banks. If anyone feeling brave wants to try to get in, we can borrow some hip waders from Lori Saul up in Stormwater, and she's got a ton of really nice waders, and you can stomp around in the creek and clean it up.
Can I nominate our youth representative? She can start in her driveway and just work your way on up to the interstate.
Well, that would be quite a section of stream to clean up, I think.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Doesn't the North Fork and Turkey Creek, do they verge on at your property?
Yes, sir.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
To the Red
Okay,
Mill Dam.
so yeah, okay.
Yeah. But this section's up there. It's not a long section, but it's up there. Honestly, I've not done it, and so I'm not sure how deep that section is.
So I was going to weigh in there. I'm probably the only one here that has done it, right?
Yeah.
I've done the Red Mill Dam before, but not up that way.
Not there. So this is the section that begins behind the wine, spirits, park and ride, the area that was there all the way up to behind Mellow Mushroom and Hardee's and all that back through there. It is.
That's a good section, because that section above it that goes behind the, whatever they call that motel now.
Right, behind the hotel area.
It's pretty rough,
It is, yeah.
because the hotel is not really good about where their trash goes.
Yeah, well, a lot of it, a lot of the storm water flows into this section that we have, so there's a lot that comes in there from that. But I will say that section is difficult. It's a difficult section. We have opted not to do it during the summer for a lot of reasons you can imagine. We've tried to do it when cold weather hits. Probably safer that way, and the vegetation's died down, the leaves are off the trees, and it's easier to see. But it's a difficult section, and I think that's part of what derailed us a little bit, because members of the board found it challenging to be able to clean it up. But it does need the cleanup, because there's generally a lot in there each time we've done it, and now we haven't done it for a few years. So I will say that I'm an advocate of doing something. I don't mind to do it. I just wanted to say that is a difficult section, which is contributing to why I think we haven't done it recently.
Optimize a lot easier.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
We can, we can look at, maybe at the next meeting, we could discuss a little more on potential dates. I would agree that it needs to be done when it cools down and things die off quite a bit. Sometime maybe.
It's generally been November, I think, that we've done
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Although sometimes I think that that's been part of the problem too. Is that it starts getting into Thanksgiving. If you have inclement weather, and then like, well, let's do it the following week, and then it's getting
Right.
into Thanksgiving. So maybe the latter part of October or certainly the very beginning of November would be a reasonable window to look at. Probably maybe a day where there's, not an early Tennessee game, that could be a problem.
That's
then-
usually a factor.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, if I hadn't thought about this until you were just bring it up, but I could touch base with Lori Saul up, who's the town stormwater coordinator, and see whether or not she has any other groups or volunteer groups looking to do that maybe don't have an assigned section that maybe we could partner with.
And we have done that
to
in-
get some additional
in-
manpower out
Yeah,
there.
we've done that in years past, and that was very helpful, especially when we had some younger people who were willing to carry heavy things.
Yeah.
I'd
So-
also check with David Smoke to check with Rotary and see what area that they're going to be working on.
We also, we have our student council at CK, there's the requirement for service hours. And I can almost guarantee you that if you gave out service hours for this, a lot of kids who are really wanting to do work will show up. Especially NHS kids. There's a lot that they require like 40 extra service hours throughout the year.
Well, if you could provide us with any details as to what would be required for it to qualify as service hours.
I really, everything pretty much that I've learned is qualified for service hours unless you're getting paid. And so I'm pretty sure this would qualify for service hours. But, I mean, I don't see a reason it wouldn't, but I know some kids would definitely do that. Especially we need off-campus service hours as a requirement for junior and senior year, and that's a more difficult opportunity than on-campus hours.
Well, that would be great.
Usually they just need a staff person to digitally check off, okay, that they've come.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll touch base with Lori. Maybe I can coordinate with you some on that and find out what how we deal with students and that sort of thing coming in there. I don't want to be a wet blanket, but just make sure that from a liability standpoint and all, and then I can report back at the next meeting, and we can see if there's any partnering opportunities or opportunities to get some other people involved. Because that would probably help if it's a rough section, and there probably is a good bit of debris up there. Although we've had a lot of heavy rain, so maybe it's washed down on somebody else's section. But
But it's not just the debris, it's the terrain of getting down. It's a small area, but
yeah, it's
it
rough.
can be steep
Yeah.
and, yeah,
It's rough.
it's rough.
And I'll ask Lori about the depth of it too, in terms of people wading. Because
It's usually not very deep, most places.
you can probably have one group of people that are bold and want to be in the creek, and then others on the banks. So that
Really, every time that my brother and I, we've explored that creek up through there, and it's really, I can't think of anywhere where it's above my knees, really.
yeah.
There's maybe a couple, like, little spots, or divots, but in the section I know, it's not deep at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, not very deep, I don't think.
If it's the latter part of October, then the snakes are already in too, so.
That's exactly right.
Okay, so it sounds like the board wants to continue to participate in the program. It's just a matter of doing a little coordination work and then picking a weekend with maybe an alternate date if it's a rain, if it's a washout. And okay, I'll work on that some between now and the next meeting and kind of report back to y'all.
All right.
How do you get to it, Marty? Do you go from the church property or what property? Or from the parking lot of the liquor store back there where the back of it?
That
Is
one,
it?
that one,
Okay.
yeah, right there where the beginning of the trail, at the trailhead there.
Okay.
Yeah, you park right there, and that's where we always would meet, and then we would just start spreading out from there.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's all I had.
All right, if that's everything, then
Motion
we
to
will adjourn.
So before everybody runs, now that we're adjourned, is anybody interested in having an impromptu staff and not developer, but applicant